Welcome to another episode of podcast. Woo. Today I have a guest. She is I try to think of a funny way to introduce, but I lost. I have some ideas on how to make this a bit dumb, but this is Cheryl.
Hi. It sounded like you forget for
this
a moment.
This is Cheryl. She's a ex-teacher.
Ex-teacher.
Ex-student.
Yes.
We are all ex-students.
Yes.
And today's topic is actually we want to talk about being a teacher in Singapore. And I think it only makes sense to bring someone who has experience being a teacher. Technically, I have experience of 5 months being a relief teacher.
That's not counted.
That's a very small data point to draw from. But Cheryl, how will you introduce yourself?
For this podcast? This podcast, I guess I would say that I've been an educator for about 5.5 years.
Only 5.5, meh?
And then I did education policy. In the ministry for another 2 years.
Okay.
But my lifelong love is education.
Education.
Yes.
Everything education.
Yes, but that also brings me to the point that whatever I say today is not representative of any ministry whatsoever.
I can see where you're saying about the voice being excited and then going overboard. We're really off to a good start.
That's the teacher voice. Yes, that's my teacher voice.
Wait, what is ex-teacher? Means you're no longer...
You're not a teacher lah.
I'm no longer a teacher, neither am I in service lah. As in the Ministry of Education where I used to be under directly.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway, maybe also to set some context, Cheryl and I we know each other in secondary school. So we go a long way back. And we only actually the funny story is that we kind of lost contact and then we reconnected after we met each other at MRT.
Is it?
I think we saw each other at maybe Jurong East or something. Then I think I was rushing somewhere. Then we were like, let's kind of start talking again or something like that. Yeah. So I text you or something. Then that's where we kind of reconnected and chatted more. Yeah. And
It's such an extrovert thing to do.
Yeah, It really is, right?
If I was me, I'll pretend and walk past and never see that person.
Why? I mean, if it's a good friend, then you were...
yeah lah.
True. But we had lost contact, and also we've never really hung out when we were in school as much. Yeah. But you can always trust Kenneth law.
But I always remember her because we were in choir together.
Oh no, here comes the story.
I remember it's like the Sec 4 farewell. Then we all gonna chow. Then Cheryl was like, she was just bowling and saying goodbye to all the seniors.
Yeah.
So that's a core memory for me. I always remember that from Cheryl.
That's when he knew that I'm a real person inside.
But going back to being a teacher.
Yes.
Yeah. Maybe you can share a bit more in terms of what made you decide on the journey. Yeah.
So, it wasn't like I've always wanted to be a teacher. I actually did mass comm. In my poly days. So then I was thinking about things like PR, so on and so forth, right? But I did relief teaching, which I think is also the story of many teachers, I would like to think. So I did relief teaching, and at that time I lived in the West, far end in the West.
Yeah.
And my first relief teaching gig was in a school, I shall not name the school, near the Ang Mo Kio area. Yeah, so I took...
can narrow it down, guys.
So I took a train and all that. So I had to walk, take a train, blah, 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 right? So essentially I had to wake up close to maybe 4:35 every morning.
That's relief teaching lah.
Yeah, that's relief teaching.
Wake up
just
at
to do that.
4:35.
Yeah.
Travel from
Oh,
the
cause
car.
Travel,
you are-
yes,
That's
because
the same
and in the past, we wouldn't take Grab or whatever. We are poor students, right?
Yeah.
But I did that for close to 2 months because I was relieving someone who was on maternity leave, and I had to teach mother tongue. which is
Wow.
to teach
Mandarin.
higher mother tongue.
Oh my lord.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your Chinese is good?
It's okay, but like, so I was like, I had to put in so much effort to like try and understand, I don't want to like teach random things. But I think that really helped me realize like, oh, if I can wake up every day at this time and travel for so long, right, and still feel like that's something I want to do every morning, like I'm not dragging my feet to work, then maybe this is something I can consider doing for a very, very long time.
That's interesting, leh. Like your 2 months in doing relief teaching made you feel like this is something you want to do.
I guess also then after that I went for internship for 6 months in a PR firm, which was a great experience. But I think when I think about it, I'm like, yeah, maybe teaching is really something for me.
More purposeful, I guess, in some ways compared to a PR firm.
Yeah, I guess I'm a very simple person, lor. That was like the litmus test for me. If I'm willing to put in all that time and effort, right, and not feel like, oh, I'm like super sian about going to work, I think that to me is worth something, lah.
So in the 2 months, which level were you teaching?
Oh, I was teaching, was it Sec 1 or Sec 2? I can't remember. But I was teaching this class and it was quite cute. Like during recess, when I was eating, right, they would actually come and sit with me. And very recently, I actually bumped into one of them.
Wow, you
Couple
still
of years
kept in
back.
contact.
So I can't remember. Maybe they added me on Facebook then after I left or something like that. But he actually recognized me.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was in his, like, I think he was serving his NS.
So old already.
Yes.
Wow.
And then he shouted, Cai Lao Shi. I was like, who? I was like, that's not me. I don't teach mother tongue,
Wow.
Yeah. And we caught up a bit, and all. So like to me, it's like, I guess that's really the magic, lor.
Yeah. Actually, I did relief teaching and my experience is the other opposite. Yeah, but actually also just curious, like, because I also I taught Sec 1, but I taught between the levels of Express, Normal Acad and Normal Tech.
Yeah.
For your case, your high Chinese means they're all Express students.
But I also did a couple of relief teaching stints in my next few years when I was still in poly.
Okay.
And I taught in like, if you want to talk about streams, then I taught across the different streams.
Yeah. But when you are doing this relief teaching, how much of the curriculum are you expected to teach? Or is it more like a touch and go kind of thing for you?
So if I'm taking over like someone who's on maternity leave, then definitely I would have to make sure that when the teacher returns, right, she can continue her lesson. For the rest, sometimes it was a bit touch and go. At that time, to be very honest, I just took it upon myself lah. Yeah, I think I would feel horrible, right? If like 2 days later the teacher comes back and then like nothing has been done. So I would try my best. I wouldn't say that I would have like succeeded perfectly, but yeah. I know your experience is a little different lah.
Yeah. Because I think in most cases, relief teachers, they don't expect you to like do too much because you don't have the proper training yet and so on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Like last time I always thought relief teaching is just like, relief teachers always come to our class, it's just physically have a teacher there. Then you kind of like do your own thing. They sometimes might teach, but it's like touch and go. And then they'll start like sharing their stories or whatever lah to engage the students. Yeah, but yeah, my experience was more like, I think it was a teacher going on a course for the first half of the year. Yeah, so I have to teach for the first half of
6
the year.
months,
Yeah, first 6 months.
wow.
5 months lah actually.
Okay.
Because January to May ma. Yeah. And then I was required to teach like the curriculum properly. Yeah. And Sec 1 math is quite easy lah. Yeah. But I think it's about how you teach and go through the curriculum. Yeah. And that was very eye-opening for me. Because all the time when you go through it, it's just like, was I like that as a kid? Like, was I so rowdy, or was it difficult for teachers to,
To handle you.
yeah, to handle me and stuff like that. Yeah. And I think for me, actually the main reason why I wanted to do a relief teaching as well, it was good money. It was like, that time it was $65 for a day.
Can't remember.
So, and it's not a full day work. right, it's like 1-2 o'clock you can chow already. Yeah, so it's like half day work and you earn like 65 a day. Then 1 month you earn about 1,000 ish. Yeah,
Which is very good money.
It's
lah,
very
for
good
as
money lah.
students.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but it was, I don't know whether I would consider it as worth it. I feel like I got PTSD from
Oh no.
my 5 months there. Yeah.
Oh no.
So my experience told me that I'm not gonna be a teacher. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. But also, to be fair, I think the experience was made worse by the teachers around me. Because I wouldn't say I was bullied lah, but there's this teacher who kind of like. So the story was that there's this normal tech class that was very difficult to manage, because the students are, I guess like school stuff maybe it doesn't really interest them that much, so they kind of like just like doing their own stuff, and it's very hard to manage, and like your curriculum is like I'll fall behind because I couldn't teach them. I spent a lot of time scolding them, and then there are times where I told them if they don't behave, like I'll hold you back for recess. I don't know whether can they still do that these days. Okay, that's another topic. But I was like, so there's this group where I helped them back, and they're like, oh, we need to go for this half club thing in the lunchtime. They have to go. So I was like, no, you all are misbehaving. Then if you are late, you all explain to the teacher why you are late lah. Because you are misbehaving ma. So you being late is not my fault. It's because you guys did this to yourself. Yeah, but I think when it reaches to the teacher came and confront me and scolded me for holding his kids back from that thing. Yeah, which I felt like I feel like the teacher should, it gives me that culture, like, instead of like teachers having each other's back, like, we are on this together, it's kind of like, why you do this to my students, Yeah, and I guess maybe as a relief teacher, they don't treat me with the respect as a normal teacher lah. Yeah. So that experience was quite bad. Yeah. I was also told off for not conducting remedial classes for students as a relief teacher. So there's a lot of expectations on me which I didn't expect it, because I thought I'm still a relief teacher, I'll try my best, but I'm not trained right? Yeah, you can't expect me to do all these things without any training. Yeah. So I think the students were quite cute. They were okay. It's like the express class was the easiest to teach because at least most of them, their attention span is there. And you can see there's a willingness to want to learn and understand concepts. Yeah. Then normal acad is kind of like in between, and the normal tech was I cannot hold their attention. Yeah.
So as a former educator,
yeah,
I do not agree with this sort of categorization.
Yeah. But I mean, that was how my head.
Yeah.
I mean, that was my experience when I was teaching. And I think I also acknowledge that me going through an express stream, I have a kind of like a preconception of how teaching should be done. Yeah. And I also recognize that engaging the techniques or the skill sets that you need to engage express students is very different when you're engaging normal acad, normal tech classes. Yeah.
I guess I would challenge that to say that actually I think especially today, right, where also parents who are more aware of like, different, I guess, learning styles that their kids have. I think during our time, everyone's just like, okay, it's whether you can study, cannot study, want to study, don't want to study, right? But I think today where a lot of parents are so aware, I don't think it's even just within like, say, streams or classes. I think even within one class, you would see that it's really quite a challenge, I think, for the teachers to have to manage so many different learning styles and then to really try and like cater to that, and try and engage the students. And then, of course, you throw in all your handphones, tech era, so on and so forth, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
I think the challenge is there today. But actually, I'm curious, Yvette, have you ever relief taught?
No.
Would you ever consider teaching?
I think JC and before between JC and uni there was a gap, right? I think. And then I had time. So I think there was a few months where I was just like on weekends, just go into JC, and then I was doing some math related kind of not relief teaching, but more like remedial, but only on weekends. I don't know why.
It's the 1-to-1 one, right?
No, it's like 1 to 5 maybe.
Okay.
I don't know why they even reached out to me. Maybe like
Because the results was good. Right?
yeah, I think so. Like,
good student.
then I was like, oh, okay. I remember it was good money also. So I was like, I mean, only like weekend. And then it was relatively close to home. Then I go lor. But then after 2 months, they're like, I think you don't need to come back.
They told you, right? You
I
got
was like, I
fired.
agree. I already know that this was not about me.
What was challenging about it?
I think I didn't know how to engage the students, like, or how to like teach. I'm not good at teaching. I'm not good at showing people how to do things. I think like as I grow older also, and then Kenneth always call me out on this, but I think I already expect people to be on my level or to be able to already be doing things at my level, which is I don't think a mindset that makes me suitable to be a teacher or educator or someone who, you know, is in that field.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right, I should quit. So but I did give tuition to like Mabel, which is my good friend's younger sister. I think because like we were living in the same condo estate, and then like she was just in the next block. But also I don't think it was math, I think it was like history or something.
But how come?
But that was okay.
But so it's interesting that it's like her friend's sister, but her friend cannot do the teaching. So you get
I don't
you.
think Tammy took history, that's why. I took history. And I think like the way that the exams were different, the assessments were different, because Tammy did like literature. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that also ended after a while. I can't remember why.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, that's my brief stint. And then all these things taught me that, yeah, I do not like teaching.
Yeah. I mean, like even day to day when we talk about like Yvette's patience is yeah. It's not something that is a strong suit lah. Like
I think even like let's say workplace, you need to onboard like rookies or like, you know, people who are new, like noobs to the team. I also get very impatient. And I was like, oh my god.
Because Yvette, know why? Yvette hate to repeat herself.
Oh wow.
And teaching is like a big part of it.
Yes.
Is like you just have to repeat certain things again
in
and
like
again.
5 million ways, but the same thing.
Yeah.
And if Yvette need to repeat, she's like, how come you don't get it?
Yeah, I already
say
said
so
it
many
once.
times.
So on that note, right, I do think that, at least just to me, right, I think that what makes a good teacher, right, actually are the ones who might not be as good or had struggles learning a certain something. So like, for example, like my relief teaching stint, right, I didn't used to like mother tongue when I was a kid lah. I mean, eventually I grew pretty okay at it. So what I did was, there was this one student, she just refused to do my homework. And I was getting very kanchong, right? I was like, oh my gosh, if a teacher comes back and then her workbook's empty, like what am I going to do, right? And so at that time there was, you know what 周刊 is?
The magazine, like 8 days but Chinese.
Yes. So at that time they had, and then I know that like, oh, she likes certain like dramas or whatever. And so I saw the cover of it. I was like, oh, that's the drama she once mentioned. Because I asked her like, oh, do you watch any like Channel 8 dramas or whatever? And then I actually went to match all the like, you know, the words, they have to learn like Chinese words and phrases for like each, I don't know, chapter or whatever. I went to look for it inside the 周刊 on a weekend, and I tapped every single one and gave it to her for her to like learn the meaning and then to do her work. Yeah, and I think that to me was like, okay, because I also, I guess, grew up learning mother tongue in that way, like watch Chinese shows, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, maybe that will help her, because I once struggled. And then when I did that for her, next week onwards, like the homework always came in.
Oh, she started.
Yeah, she started doing. Yeah. So to me, it was like, okay. I mean, like that made me feel warm and fuzzy inside, which is so cheesy, but I think that also, so like it's true, right? Like varied experiences can really make or break right? Our decisions on like what we want to do for a longer time. So, yeah.
But for like relief teaching, do they not have like standards or, you know, certain considerations when you get one?
You mean like teachers?
Yeah.
Like relief teachers?
Relief teachers.
Yeah, relief teachers.
I mean, I'm not so sure in the past when it came to us.
When I remember I got a contact, it was my previous math teacher. Then someone that I think, did I reach out? I think I probably reached out to ask for whether there's any positions for relief teaching, because it was right after NS.
Oh,
So
you were free
I
also.
came out from service in December, and school is in August, so I had like an 8-month break.
And I
Yeah.
think in the past, all we had to do was to fill up this application form with our resume to MOE. Then once it's approved, you have to put
can't
in
remember.
something. And then once
Yeah.
it's approved, then you can call the schools
Yeah.
or they'll contact you. So I guess
because it's
yeah.
also tied to your major, not major, or what you
grades?
studied in school.
Ah.
So in like JC, I cleared these subjects. Then I'm eligible to teach these things at this level as relief teachers lah. Yeah. So there's that requirement, but it's quite straightforward. And I think based on grades, your grades are quite good. And I did quite well for my A levels. I think it was not difficult lah.
But I think today they are likely more stringent. Also, I mean, at least just on my own like personal experience, the relief teachers that I've interacted with, like when I was teaching, right, they're all used to be like experienced teachers. You know, some of them maybe like they took a break because of family matters
see.
and all. Yeah, so today a lot of them are so well I mean in that sense they've already been well trained and so like filled with experience that sometimes I even go to them because they might have been teaching this like 5 years ago, so on and so forth. I think because of
Interesting.
lack of resources.
Yeah, I was just about thinking like, I don't remember I feel like back then relief teachers are all like either fresh grads or going into university. So these days you're saying
These days actually most of them that I see
They're
are
like-
experienced.
like maybe semi-retired,
Yeah, or they took a break, you know.
so they just do like part-time lah to them.
Yes, in
this
that
relief
sense.
teaching is part because the workload is a lot
Yes,
So
lesser.
like freelancers.
Responsibility is lower.
Yeah. And also like I guess because of limited resources, right? I think the schools really treasure them today. Like you really see them as partners because without them, right, you just cannot function. You know? I guess maybe also especially in primary schools where you really need that adult figure, right? So like Kenneth's experience, like it's kind of sad lah to me. Like it really is, right? Because you actually need that person there to make sure the students can learn for 6
Yeah.
months. That's a really long
Yeah.
time. And
Yeah.
if they don't see you as a partner, I think it's really the students' loss lah, which is kind of sad. You know, you don't want the students to suffer the effects of them. Yeah. So hopefully
And,
today's better.
Like today, do they still recruit like foreign teachers? Like maybe languages? They recruit from China. I remember once in JC for English, we actually had a British teacher.
Wow.
I don't know why.
Oh wow.
But yeah, she was there for a while. And then we had asked her, because like Singaporeans, right? So we never live in, we don't know what's countryside. And then I remember one of the classmates, they asked her, oh, yeah, because her parents live in the countryside. Then they were like, how do they go to the toilet? Because we have no concept of countryside at that time.
You all just
Yeah,
felt like,
yeah.
it's not a
So the teacher was like confused.
like
It's
in the
just like-
cave. You go to the cave where you usually sleep in, and then you dig a hole.
I remember that vividly also because maybe to me, you don't conceive of the countryside because you never
Yeah,
experience it. So when she said that, I was like, oh, so I guess life in the countryside is like in a city?
Like with modern
Yeah.
amenities still lah.
Yeah. Because if you live in Singapore all the time, you just think of countryside as some rural places, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, so interesting.
Foreign
Yeah.
teachers.
Yeah. Do they still have that? Like,
Actually, when you grow up, you have a lot of foreign teachers, man. Probably
maybe
only
only
have
for
one or two.
languages, maybe.
Yeah.
I had one
like for
China,
foreign
Chinese
languages.
Yeah.
teacher for a few years.
Yeah, I think majority of the teachers would likely still be Singaporean. I would think so. Yeah. But I guess if you have certain areas where, I mean, sometimes it's also supply and demand, right? And if no one applies, right, and we're really lacking, then I guess we have to also tap on like other international teachers.
Actually, now I also just curious that now you mentioned about like your relief teaching as in the secondary school, but most of your time when you're teaching in primary school, correct?
As when I became an official
Yeah.
teacher, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
yeah.
was it a choice thing, or was it like what made you decide, or did you even decide to be a primary school teacher?
Yeah, so actually I've always wanted to work with youths. And so that's why in all my 3 years of relief teaching, right, it was always in various secondary schools. So I've actually never really taught at a primary school. When I went for my interview before I went to undergrad and all that,
Yeah.
so I think we had to do like a bit of a demo, like a teaching demo. So they ask you a question like, oh, if you have to teach at class days, what would you do? Blah, 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 so on and so forth. And after the whole thing, because it was a panel, and some of the panelists, I guess that's what I can call them, they actually said, I think you're very suited to teach primary school. And in my head, I was like, no, I don't want to deal with children. I mean, at that time, I was like, I don't think I can manage them, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, yeah, you will have a very high chance of getting in, right? If you were to be. And I guess at that time I was like, maybe this is a sign. Like maybe because these are experienced educators, right? Maybe they saw something in me that I didn't know I had. Maybe. Yeah, it was a leap of faith. And I guess I really wanted to go into education so much, and I was like, okay, maybe it's a sign. Let's just
Give it a try. So, okay, so that's quite interesting. So, are there any avenues that you could have expressed a very strong interest to a certain level? For example, actually, I don't want primary school.
So they actually asked me what's my preference. I actually told them secondary. Just like secondary school. I mean, they asked why, blah, blah, blah. But my sensing is that at that time, again, supply and demand, right?
Yeah.
Likely there might
lacking.
have been, maybe a lack in primary school teachers. But I also, I don't know, call it blind faith. I guess I've always been like that, just my personality. When someone gives me a challenge and they say, oh, I believe in you, then I'm just like, okay,
so easy
I can
one,
do it. Yeah. And then I'm
Cheryl,
like,
I believe you
okay.
can give me $100,000.
Yes, not
Yeah,
that
work on
way.
it.
Not that way. But they're like, oh, I can tell, your love for blah, 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 blah. I was like, yes, that's me. I'll do it. And so, yeah.
So why did you want to teach youths?
So because when I was in poly, I was like in this thing called ambassadors, where we do a lot of secondary school outreach. And so during like these times where I did the outreach, I was like, oh, actually I feel like youths, they are of a certain maturity level, right? It'll be easier to engage with them. I can just kind of be myself, make sarcastic jokes, and they'll be able to get it. And so that was me. I used to think that primary school is all about like babying, babying the kids.
Yeah.
Wow, but I was really proven wrong.
How
I
so?
really was.
In what ways?
Yeah.
So I remember in my second, third year of teaching, so I mostly taught like slightly older kids, like 10, 11, 12. Then there was this
Upper
one
primary,
year. Upper primary, which I was quite happy with. I was like, okay, they're kind of like preteen, right? I was like, yeah, sure, we can, get along. And then I had to teach a primary 1 class. And I was really, really shocked because that was, at least in my school, we could indicate our preference, and that was never my preference. And I always feel like the lower primary teachers, right, they are so motherly and they're so organized. They have like this set of routines, and I think they are so great because that's how the kids really learn a bit like of discipline, and they're like not so confused and blur. I'm like, oh my gosh, if I teach them, it's gonna be horrible. They're just gonna be all over the place, and I'm just gonna be like, yeah. But so that 1 year, I think it really shifted my perspective, and I guess it also kind of then gave me this thing that I believe in. I guess you can call it a teaching, I don't know, belief philosophy, that sometimes the kids, right, how they turn out is really how much we expect of them. So if what we expect of them is here, they could just go here. But if what we expect of them is here, then they'll always be here, like just hovering around. Yeah. I give you an example. So I was teaching this class of primary 1 students, and I think maybe 6 months later, they saw one of our janitors pushing like this whole trolley of like all the different like garbage bags, and then some of them dropped out. Okay, and these kids are so young, right? And one of them actually raised up their hand, so it was like a little break. Now these kids are very lucky. They have like a snack time.
Wow.
In between. Yeah, so in addition to their recess, there is a snack break because like the day is too long.
Like mid-morning snack.
After recess, So like
Recess
maybe-
is what
like
time?
9:30, 10.
recess could be like 9:30. So this could be like 11:30-ish. Because
Okay.
sometimes their classes end like 1:30. So there's like a mid
pre-lunch.
like a little
Yeah.
break. Right. So one of them actually raised up their hand during the break. And then I said, "Oh, Miss Choi, can I be excused to go outside?" Then I was like, What for? Do you need the restroom or something? No, it's really because I saw the uncle outside and all his stuff dropped. And then a couple of them said, we also want to go and help. And I said, sure. So I just stood there, right, watching. And they really like went over and then they still asked the uncle, like, "Oh, can we help you?" Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, so sweet.
Yeah, so sweet, right? And then
Yeah.
the uncle like looked so touched, you know, like I mean these are like so young children and they were observant enough to pick that up. Yeah, and when I spoke to them, then they say, "Oh, it's because, you know, at the start of the year, you said that we shouldn't just, you know, focus on ourselves. We need to look around us and see what's
Wow.
going on." Then I was just like,
You say it. You don't remember?
yeah,
Like,
I honestly I had no idea I ever said that. But because this is what I expected of them and I would never want to, I don't baby talk them. And so they just lived up to whatever I thought they were. I said, "Y'all are big children."
big children.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say, "Oh, children," you know. I was like, nope,
Yeah.
no such thing. Yeah, so he said, "Then what will you call us?" I said, "I will either call you people or I will call you class." They were like, "People?" I was like, "Yes, because you are big children, I am an adult, we are all big people." That was what I did. Yeah, and they lived up, lor. They were just bigger people than I've ever imagined them to be.
Did you how old are primary 1 kids?
Seven,
Some
ah.
6 plus.
6 plus? Huh? 6 plus?
Yeah, because
Going
birthday,
7 mah.
going 7.
There'll be 7 that year lah.
Yeah. How do you navigate difficult conversation? Like my colleague was recently telling me about, so she sent her son, who is I think 4, to a soccer class, and then the soccer is being taught by a black guy. So the son, who has no conception of, you know, what it means to be black and those race stuff, he only knows Singapore only got Chinese, Malay, Indian.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right. So he came home and then he said, "Mommy, that guy is Indian." Then she had to explain to him, no, you know, he's like probably African, but he speaks with a French accent. So, you know, maybe he's from France. Then she was like, "Why don't you ask him?" So he went up to the guy the next day and then asked, "Are you French African?" Then the guy was like, "Oh, wow," you know, like, "Oh, that's a very good observation. Like, yes, you know, I'm from, I think, Guyana, where they speak French, right?"
Okay.
So, yeah.
Wait, how
so it
old
was
is the
like
kid?
a 4. Yeah.
Well, you say all this, then the kid will be like, can the
But
kid understand?
I mean, I guess
Maybe,
understand.
yeah.
That's why. So so they explained this as well. So that's how my like colleague navigated those kind of conversations. But like how do those conversations come up in the classroom?
I think sometimes they do, and I think just in general, I think the younger children especially, right, they're very curious, right, and they would just ask you questions. I think like what your colleague did, I think that's great, you know, that she took the time to explain and she even like encouraged, right, her kid to ask. So that's what at least for me, that's what my approach usually it's like to I always tell the kids that there's no such thing as a silly question, right, but there's a difference between a polite question and a question that can be hurtful. So I always want them to make those choices, like, is this polite, is this considerate, and why are you asking this question? So I know it's terrible, and my 7-year-olds are like, oh my gosh, ask one question, still need to think so much. Like, I still need to ask myself, why am I asking this question?
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
why is it? But so we practice that. So sometimes when they ask certain questions, I'm like, why are you asking this question? It's not because I don't want you to ask this, but you need to at least know why you're asking. And if you are curious, you know, you want to learn more, you want to feel like connected, right? I'll be more than happy to explain it to you. And I always told them that if I can't answer you, then I will go and try and find out. But you can also go and try and find out. Yeah, so my poor kids would have to bear that for one entire year.
But how much time do you have with them on a daily basis?
So for the primary 1 classes, a lot of the schools, they try their best to at least put the form teacher who teaches like English or math. So then you see them every day.
Oh.
Yeah, for at least an hour. Or sometimes if you're both the English and math teacher, which I was, then and sometimes you teach other extra subjects, then you see them quite a bit lah. Yeah. In fact, I think most of the form teachers would teach at least a subject most of the time that would allow them to see them every day.
Yeah, actually kind of think of it. I was just like, oh yeah, teachers used to teach multiple subjects
Yes.
in primary school. Yeah. But secondary school probably
More specialized.
more specialized, have to be a bit more specialized.
I think today we are also trying to move towards that. So we have this thing called a double specialization, even
Oh.
in primary school.
In NIE or like what do you mean?
That means in the school itself, the teachers usually, I mean, we try because of limited resourcing again, but we try for one teacher to teach 2 subjects at most. Yeah, so then the students really see a switch. Especially our PE, art and music. It's very rare that you see like your form teacher teaching you English, then after that PE, music and like art. Yeah, so that I guess kind of also protects the students' non-acad subject space. Yeah.
I'm also wondering, does streaming still exist?
Officially, in terms of in primary school, right?
I don't know. Like
Primary school, last time there is a primary.
Like you have your EM1,
After primary
EM2,
3, right?
right?
Yeah.
EM3.
I remember after primary 2 there was a one layer of, it's not official, I don't know, but we were shuffled into different classes in primary 3. Then after primary 4 you are shuffled again because
To EM1,
streaming.
2 and 3.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because whether you're taking high mother tongue or not. Yeah. Is it still something like this?
So there's no like national level streaming where like, you know, everyone has EM1, EM2, EM3. No.
Okay.
And I think every school does theirs a little differently.
Oh.
Yeah. So, I mean, usually the time to check on the student's progress would likely be like P4. And then
Is there a
based-
reason why P4? Is it when like that's when the brains are, developing a certain way?
Or maybe
like,
it's closer to PSLE.
I think it's the curriculum. So like because P5 and P6, right, the upper primary curriculum is a lot more complex, I would say. And then at P4, by then, they would also be quite prepared. You know, they would have had quite a number of years. You know, you have your foundations, your 2 years. P3, P4 is kind of middle, right? So before you make that transition, I think it's also a good checkpoint just to see like, okay, is this kid coping well? So on and so forth. So I think at that point, a lot of the schools, they would do like internally based on maybe the profile of the students and the students' learning and all. So some would do it by every subject. So like you might be shuffled into classes, like every
wow.
lesson, like at least for the main
More
subjects,
class.
you shuffle. Or maybe some would do English, math. Or maybe that profile of the students in that cohort that year, maybe mathematics is something that they really need to work on, so they only do it by math classes.
wow.
So
So much complexity.
it really is, and it's actually
It's so
quite
different compared to-
customizable. You know, like a lot of people think, it's just another round of streaming, but it's really to support the kids. And I think that's something I've also learned after being an educator.
Because I think back then was like the streaming actually in some sense is interesting because back then it's like regardless of the subjects, it's like okay, if you're EM2 then all of you all take the same, but then some
Yeah.
people's strengths are like in math,
Yeah.
some people's
Yeah.
strengths in science and so on and so forth. Yeah, so wow. But okay,
Wait, so PSLE still exists, but what
Yes.
the grading is
the
done
grading
differently
system
now.
is different, right? There's no like numbers tagged to it anymore, right?
There are
like ABC.
number levels.
What does that mean?
So it's like our O levels.
Ah.
So you don't have a like upon 300 kind lah. It's more like
To be honest, right, I had left the system after they introduced that formally. So I'm
Yeah.
not too sure. I know that they have different levels. So it's no longer like your A star, A, B, and C. Yeah, I think they have like 8 or 9 levels. Are you checking that?
Yeah, I'm checking now.
Yeah, I think they have like quite a number of levels.
okay, so
Yeah.
the new PSLE 2024 scoring system, blah blah blah.
Just this year?
I mean, they are as updated to now lah. Your scores is based on AL achievement levels.
Achievement levels.
So you have up to 8 levels, but the levels are tagged to scores upon 100. So more than 90 marks is AL1. Basically, it's like A star lah.
Then
Then you have 85 to 89, blah blah blah, so on, and then AL8 is less than 20 points.
so like if you want to go like certain secondary schools will accept students of a certain AL lah.
I don't know.
Otherwise, what's the point of taking these exams?
Actually, I don't know. I don't know how the system works right
Yeah.
now. I still remember when you PSLE, you have this booklet
Yes.
of all the schools. Then they will tell you.
yeah, I remember.
Right.
Then you go and look, okay, where can I
then
go in?
I remember
Yeah.
each page is like, they'll show you the map of the school, like where the school locate, then the cut-off points and so on and so forth.
Then from there you shortlist. Then say, okay, maybe I can
Yeah,
go here.
yeah,
Then you
yeah,
indicate
yeah.
your choice,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. You set like first few choices.
I'm not sure whether they're starting. Is it this year or they started last year?
I mean, this system.
As in, this system. So because I think because it's relatively new, so I don't think there would be that booklet. So at least from what I can remember, what I last heard was that they want the schools to show their areas of strengths. So today, the primary school kids, right, there's actually this thing where they can apply for, it's like an early admission exercise where they can, like, let's say if I'm very good in hockey and this particular school is strong in hockey, right, I can actually like go for some trials or some auditions. It's kind of like our secondary school, DSA.
Yeah.
So there's a similar exercise for primary schools as well.
Was it just sports?
No, so it can also be like arts, so on and so forth. Yeah,
Okay.
so based on the strengths of the
So
secondary school.
it's based on this year onwards. So 2024
wow.
onwards, the Express, NA, and NT streams will be removed
Yes.
from
They
secondary
remove
school.
them.
So secondary school no longer has this three.
No. So what they do is a subject-based banding.
So
I've heard that
maybe
term.
your math
Yes.
is considered really good. So you join the group of people whose math is really good.
Yeah.
Then your Chinese sucks. You go and join the group
Yeah,
of
so
Chinese
there
people that
are
cannot
three
make it.
levels. So 1, 2, 3.
The G1, G2,
yes,
G3.
G1, G2, G3. So you get to move,
Okay.
So
around
within the school lah.
within the school.
But how do you get into that school?
I don't know. We need someone
There's
who's
much
smarter.
confusion.
Yeah, but actually, interesting. So when they take their O levels, is it also different kinds? Like you're taking math G1.
Oh wow.
I don't know.
Wow, that one I have no idea.
Actually, I don't
honestly.
know. Can you?
Is there a secondary school teacher that can let us know?
Yeah, system has changed quite a bit lah. Okay.
it has.
Actually, maybe I want to bring to another point because the fact that all these things there's so much customization. I mean, it's definitely good for the students, but I always had the impression that teachers are struggling.
What makes you think that
I
way?
think partly from you. I think partly also from what I hear from other friends as well. I can say my impression is that because there's so much expectations from teachers these days, especially like I think back then as teachers, it does feel like that you have your parents behind you. It's like if you don't pay attention in school, I'm gonna tell your parents. Then your parents will fuck you up. which is my experience growing up. The teachers will use my parents as a leverage to get me to be better at school, to pay attention, to not get into trouble. Yeah, and calling your parents, you're like, oh shit, no, I'm screwed. If my parents are being called to school, I'm screwed. I'm gonna get it from my parents, yeah. But I think these days hearing media reports and so on, it always feels like teachers have to be on the edge most of the time because like a little bit of thing, parents may start complaining and then it may roll to a very, very big situation.
Wasn't there that, like the news article maybe last year or something talking about teachers' mental health? Do you remember? And then all they had from MOE was an app that doesn't really work.
Oh, like a chatbot.
Yeah, or did I read it on Reddit? I can't remember.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah.
They try to introduce some.
Yeah, some chatbot that doesn't really work, and then might have been on Reddit. I might have read it there.
So
but yeah,
I think in general that's how I think back then when I did the relief teaching, I also realized there's more and more work because you have to do lesson plans, which I don't know how long have they implemented, but I also understand the lesson plan sometimes can be very tedious. I don't know whether you are the one who told me like the amount of time you spend planning each lesson and doing all this paperwork, making sure everything is in black and white. I feel like it takes up a lot of time because I understand that teachers even marking is a freaking time sink. Considering like if let's say you have a class with 40 packs, you mark their homework, and then you are not gonna teach one class only. You're gonna teach multiple class, so it'll be like hundreds and hundreds of homework. And then you have to prep for exams, you have to prep for remedial classes, I don't know, additional
This
questions.
reminded me of something. I wonder how, I don't know, schools or MOE is thinking of using AI to help teachers with that.
Okay, that one later.
Oh, really?
Yeah, maybe we can talk about it later. But what's your thoughts on like workload for teachers these days?
So I think sometimes, right, I would agree that I think increasingly parents are more involved, right? Really just because they generally, a lot of them are more educated, right? Compared to say our parents' generation where like, say like, our parents, some of them might not even have gone to school beyond primary or secondary school,
Yeah.
right?
And they see the teachers as the educated ones.
Yes, and
I
so,
I think they see being in education is a privilege.
yes,
So as student,
yes.
you need to like count your blessing that
Yeah.
you're even being able to be in school
Yes,
and learn.
yes. But today, because the parents are so much more involved, and I guess it's always like a two-edged sword, But I must say that after teaching for a while, I also realized that the expectations are not so much, or rather not only by like society and like other stakeholders, but really on ourselves. So I give you an example, like marking, right? We all have about the same load of marking if we were to teach similar subject combinations and the number of classes. But how much we want to put into that marking, right? The baseline is, yes, let's say I mark an essay, right? I pick out the errors, and I follow this marking scheme and I pass it back to the students, right? And for me, I've always seen marking as a very, very good way to check for my students' understanding, right? And also to help them learn. Like, I've never ever seen marking as like, because in the past, when I get back my essay, I'm like, okay, how do I improve? Actually, I have no idea. Right? I see my mistakes and all that, but I really don't know how to improve unless my teacher sees me, and sometimes they do, right? And they explain. So I was like, but I can't be seeing every single student. There's just no time to see a class of 40. So I would write like a whole paragraph
Wow.
of like feedback that I think the students should work on for each essay. And you times that by 40. And after a while, I was like, wow, I don't know if this is sustainable,
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really the expectations that you put on yourself. But once you started and you see it work, right, that's even harder.
Because you're
It's
like,
hard to stop.
I need to keep doing this.
Yeah, because they are actually
benefiting.
improving. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this just goes on and on and on. And let's just be honest, I think most teachers didn't go into teaching for the money. Right? If I wanted to be rich, I wouldn't have become a teacher. And if I wanted to do good, I don't have to be a teacher either. There are so many other occupations that I can take on. So
Yeah.
I would like to believe that at least a majority of educators, of teachers, right, it's really because they feel for their students, right? But increasingly, just because of other kinds of extra things, right? Like you have all your additional like learning journeys, CCAs, blah, blah, blah,
Yeah.
so on and so forth. So it's not that the workload has suddenly exploded, but it's because you keep wanting to do better and more, and there's always just a limit, right? Time is finite, and yeah, so it's hard lah. Once you've started to see how it can help your students, right, it's very hard to say, then I don't want to do it. Yeah, and I think that's a common thing you would hear, right? Like, teachers so tired. Okay, then you'll prioritize. But everything also we don't want to drop, right? Like it's just a never-ending.
So you feel like
cycle.
a big part of why teachers feels like teachers' workload is very big is also because of their own personal, I guess, what do you call it? Like they feel responsible to do more for the kids.
Yeah, and sometimes it comes from ourselves, but sometimes it also unfortunately comes from the public pressure, right? And the environment. Like
Yeah.
if you always hear like, we want to do this for the students, then who can say no lah? I don't want to help my students. Like, and after a while, it could or might become unhealthy because if everything we're doing for the students, but what's going to happen then to the teachers and their well-being? So this is really something I've always struggled with, even just myself.
Sounds tiring. I hear already. I'm so tired.
Oh no, is
Yeah.
it too like
No,
serious?
'cause-
Should I like talk about something more
'cause
fun?
I also like as you share about this, I also think about my own experience of what I did and so on. Like I think I do want the students to do well, but I feel like I think at the time when I was doing the relief teaching, I also not mature enough to realize some of these things lah. Like, you know, like if I feel like if the students are not learning in the way that I teach them, then they are not interested, then I kind of like gave up on them as well lah. Yeah, I don't think I also went through in my mind I also wasn't, when I do all this marking and so on, I don't think I'm in a position where I was genuinely trying to help the kids that much. I think at the end of the day, I saw it as more like a part-time job, and I'm just doing whatever I need to do and try to move on from there. Yeah, so I don't think I would. But then that also, the difference is that I taught math, and when I taught language, I feel like it's a very different thing. Like math is very straightforward. You get it right or get it wrong. And if you get it wrong, there's a reason why you get it wrong. It's usually quite straightforward. You didn't use the right equation. You make careless mistakes on spelling, not spelling, on the numbers and so on. And like there's no, I don't see there will be a need to kind of like write an essay to explain what you could have done better lah. Yeah, you just like circle careless. Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Want to hear some tips? So I also used to be a careless student. I don't know. Although Yvette looks like she's not a careless student. She looks like she's extremely meticulous.
A
yeah.
student.
I mean, I was really bad at math. In fact, actually, one of the reasons why I chose to go into teaching, which I didn't talk about just now, was so there are three.
You want to get better at math?
No, it's because I think it's my experience with a teacher who must be forgiven. So we have this saying lah, like when we first joined NIE, right? Like there are three types of teachers. I think like there's like this good teacher, there's like not neutral teacher, and then there are teachers who must be forgiven. I think my experience with one of them was so strong that I was really disappointed. I was like, oh, is this what a teacher should be like? And I think in my heart then I told myself like if I ever become a teacher at that time, which I thought I would never be anyway, I would never want to do that.
Yeah.
And so she, can't say what she taught me, but I think it's pretty obvious. So anyway, when I started teaching math, right, to the kids, I saw like they were always like careless, right? So actually I thought rather than try and like tell them, okay, don't be careless. So I asked them like, why did you make this mistake? I said, oh, I didn't see. So okay, so if you didn't see, then how can you make sure you see? So let me use their highlighters, right? Or like some of them say like, oh, after I do this, then I forget. So I say, no, you draw like some kind of symbol to remind yourself. Because I always believe that there are reasons why people are careless.
Yeah.
Right? And so, while math is like, but the process is also different for each of the kids. But it's very time consuming.
Yes.
Yeah, so unfortunately they did this during recess with me.
Oh.
I know I will go and sit beside them and say, oh yeah, I just want to find out. And I was like, okay, let me write this down. Yeah. So you see again, is it sustainable?
So are you saying that that teacher that needs to be forgiven is like
you
the
just
way...
want to know about that, right? He was not interested in like how I taught the kids.
So I mean, from what you're saying, I inferred that the way that the teacher call out students who are careless is not done in a in a conducive or
I think
kind
it
of
wasn't,
like put you down.
I think it wasn't that. I think it made me feel disappointed. I think the way that teacher had responded to me struggling with that subject, right, made me feel like, wow, I'm really horrible at it. And I'm just like, almost like a useless person. And yet I was always quite obedient. Like I would try. And like I'm like, but I really cannot understand. It's not like I was trying to be lazy or difficult. But in my head, because of the way she had responded, and it was just ingrained in my brain, like, okay, I will always fail at this. I am lazy and I'm terrible. Yeah, and that was why I told myself like I would never want my kids in future to feel this way.
Now I'm trying to think whether do I have any disappointing teacher moments. Not as a teacher, but like as a student, do you have any teachers that you find
I
it
was
like
just
was a bit
thinking that
disappointing?
you're like people always talk about teachers that they remember or teachers that made impact. I don't think many of my teachers made impact on me.
That's kind of sad.
Except for those like infamous teachers that the whole school know. You know those
Okay,
kind,
yeah,
those
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
老教kind of
Yeah, yeah,
teachers
yeah.
that everybody would know.
Yeah.
But it's only because you know of them. But I don't think any of my teachers made any impact on me.
Yeah, I'm trying to think my primary school. My form teacher, I remember back then she's like quite strict on us lah, like as a typical teacher, but in a way that's still quite nurturing lah. So I always remember quite fondly of her. Like I know she'll be like quite strict at us. Then when I think probably when we just started uni or something, then we had a gathering or so. Then met her again. Then she's like this quiet, nice person. That was just like, this is so different from the teacher that I remember. Like back then as kids, she was like and then nag you a bit here and there. Yeah, and I think back then she was quite a young teacher at the time. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay. Like to be honest, I still don't think I can remember specific moments. Especially in primary school. Like I think maybe similarly, I don't have that kind of impactful moments lah. But I also guess that maybe in some ways I'm lucky in the sense that like I do relatively well in primary school. I wouldn't say I'm like top, but I guess probably one of the more book smart kids lah.
So maybe
and my school is very small anyway.
Yeah, maybe we were the kids that just realized they don't need to put too much attention on because we'll be fine.
Yeah, I only remember that I always get called out for talking too much.
I did get called
Yeah,
out
then
for
my
that too.
my report card, the comment is like, Kenneth needs to pay more attention in class. Yeah, Kenneth needs to pay more. Kenneth may need to talk less in class, and focus more. And he can do better if he does that. I always get those on. Yeah.
That's why, you are both doing this
Oh
podcast.
shit. Yeah.
Yeah.
You talk a lot in school. I can't
Only
see.
to-
I
only
can't
with
see
my
that.
friends.
Okay.
Like if I'm with
So
my
you
good
put
friends.
together with your friends, then you're like,
die out.
"Meow."
Shut up.
But in secondary school, I guess maybe secondary school, I'm trying to think whether there were any. But primary school, I got kena like the teacher act like they tore up my test paper because I don't know why I was talking up during an exam. Like I finished the exam very fast, so I'm bored. So I think apparently I turned around and start talking to my friend who also finished already. Yeah,
And
then
then
my test paper
gone.
got torn.
Oh, no.
But apparently didn't and I still did them. I think my parents had to come down.
Oh,
Yeah. And it got like 96 about 100 or something like that.
好脸 moment.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Oh, I just remember. Yeah, in primary school, there was this one teacher. I actually don't remember her name, but she
Okay.
made it's not a good experience.
Oh no. I'm like hoping, hoping like can see the hope in my eyes, like.
Yeah, so okay, let me pour 冷水 first. I think what happened was like there was this boy. I think I told Kenneth before. Like there was this boy who was, I can't remember what, but then like actually in hindsight, he was probably not from a very well-to-do background. Can actually in hindsight, you can actually even as a kid you notice things, right? So I think his uniform is usually like older and also like dirtier. But I think some other boy was making fun of him, so everyone was like laughing at him, and then I was like laughing too. And then he took the broom and he whacked me. Then I was like crying. I think I was like primary 3 or something. Then just nice the teacher came in because all this happened when the teachers were not around, which I think is when these things usually happen.
yeah.
So the teacher came in and then the teacher saw like what's this commotion. Then I got scolded too or something like that. Then I forever remember like, oh my god, I got scolded for being hit by a broom. That's so embarrassing.
Oh.
Yeah. But that made an impact. I just remember the teacher was short. That's what I remember.
I
Okay,
win.
sure,
Just shot.
teacher. Okay.
But that's the only thing I remember. I don't remember her name. But that was the only kind of impact, if any, a teacher made on me.
Okay, I have a good one to share.
Okay.
And I think so I guess what I'm seeing is also, I guess if we have quite a number of teachers who kind of shape our, I don't know, growing up experiences,
Yeah.
likely then maybe if ever we become teachers, they kind of do that. So I used to be quite quiet, believe it or not, when I was like in lower primary. And then when I transferred school, when I was in P5, I had this teacher where, so I was a okay student. I wasn't like super smart or anything, but I was okay. And I don't know what he saw in some of us, and he decided that some of us should go and like act in this skit for some racial harmony day, and then after that he gave me some emceeing like opportunities, which was quite rare because usually I think that would go to like students who are obviously more well spoken, more confident, right? And yet he just kept pushing me, and he used to call me like Ah Choi, by my surname, right? And I said, "Oh, Ah Choi, can do it, can do it." I was like, "Oh, okay, sure, you know." And I guess what I saw then was like, wow, this person believes in me, and it has nothing to do with my academic abilities. Yeah, and that was very, I guess it was really a pivotal turn for me in the way I saw myself as well. Yeah, and so this idea of holistic education, or like really just teaching beyond like the books, was just something that I had learned even like at the age of 11, and that stuck with me throughout. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So I will always remember.
Okay, I remember one positive thing.
Oh, okay, all right, here we go.
Okay.
But
Yes.
it's not a specific teacher, but I think it's just in general. Because, like, you know, when earlier we were talking about how you will leave, like, little notes. So I think usually I do quite well in English. Then when I write certain, you can choose, like, to write fiction or something like that. Then usually when I write those kind of, like, stories, then teachers will leave comments like, oh, this was a good read, like, this was enjoyable. So I think that helped to build this idea of sense of self that I'm a good writer.
Yeah.
So I would say, that started thanks to,
yeah.
you know, during like secondary school when teachers left little comments like that, they were like, oh, wow, you know, I can write.
Yeah.
So okay, that's a positive story.
Yes.
Plus one to educators.
Yes, educators who are watching, know that your feedback is very important.
It is.
Now that you also mentioned that, I do remember, I think I should probably shared before about how, like, I think in secondary school, my languages are not really my strong suit. My strong suit is always science and math. Yeah, and languages, I'm always playing a catch-up game somewhat. And I feel like secondary school, for some reason, they always make sure that your English is always just pass one. Like,
Really?
nobody gets 90 upon 100 kind one. Rarely people gets A one. Even get A is like borderline A. That's the vibe I get from
Maybe that's
most
your
of my
school. I don't know.
the same school, you know,
I never get like
I'm always like
actually mine not too
I'm
bad.
always like
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm always like a C student, and then most of my classmates will always get C. The good ones will get B. Yeah, rarely get A1. I don't know, it's a teacher thing or whatever lah, but we always realize that like this is the way it's graded. It's like being kind of the standards is like so high that we are always being brought down, that we need to do better. And then but then when O level comes out, everybody do a lot better than what they intend or like what they initially peg us to lah. So I never really saw I feel like English was always like sometimes I get it, sometimes I don't. Yeah, and I don't think I always have that confidence that I can write well and express myself well. Yeah, it's only one incident. I think also because my dad had cancer. So I think that the composition was like I needed to write something about, maybe, I don't think it's about how I feel, but like something that I could write about my experience about my dad. Yeah, and I think that experience made me a lot more expressive in my essay. And then I think that essay actually did really well. Yeah. So that made me also realize like, oh, like I can actually write well. Yeah, if the conditions were met lah. Like I can be more expressive and so on. And I think that's from that moment onwards I became a lot more confident in my English writing skills and being more expressive. I think also that's where I also started writing like poems and stuff like that by myself. Yeah. But I can't say the same about Mandarin lah. I think Mandarin I hate memorizing lah. So Mandarin is never really something that I enjoyed doing it. And then I guess the language of the teaching language is always English. So yeah, Mandarin kind of like put as on a back seat. Yeah. But I think that was like now that I think about it, that was like a moment where I start to have more confidence. And more confidence in my writing. And then I think that kind of like I guess it builds on it when I went to a JC as well. Yeah. Because in JC I had this teacher which is I think everybody hated her. because of her teaching methods, but I did well because of her lah. Yeah. So I did never like her class because she's very like, it's my way or the highway. Yeah. And every time you ask question, she will also kind of like, well, you ask a stupid question. Like you ask question, you must think. You must think, then you
Hear
ask.
the guess.
Then then you like, okay, I think already. Then I ask. Then still cannot swan the stupid question. then you be like, I don't want to ask question. Then when nobody want to ask question, then you're like, why is nobody asking questions? Then,
You can't win.
yeah, then you're like,
Can't
oh
win.
shit, like
Can't
you
win.
ask also tio swan, don't ask also cannot. Then you're like, oh, yeah. But then, that like, even though we don't like her teaching style, it worked lah. Like she was very focused. Like, how do we get better at GP? And there's a formula that she follows that she say, you just follow my formula and you will do well. And we're like, oh, I kind of like hated it, but at least for me, I can't say everyone in my class was able to kind of like did well because of her teaching methods, but I personally benefited from it lah. Yeah, I got A2 for GP, which I'm like, none of my tests in school ever got near A2. I always get C5,
Another Howlian
C6.
moment. Another Howlian
Yeah,
moment.
but I got A2. Yeah, which I was very, very surprised of. Yeah. So I think that, yeah, I mean, I never talked to her anymore. I don't know where she is right now or whatsoever. But yeah, that
Would
was.
you thank her if you saw her today?
I think I thanked her on the day we got results.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I went to her lah, show her I got an A2. Yeah. So she's like, oh, congrats. Yeah. I mean, we weren't
Also,
close.
like
The
very
thing
proud.
is,
Like, see, I
the
told
thing
you
is-
my formula worked.
Yeah.
Congrats.
But the thing is, like, I never felt like I built a relationship with her. Because her teaching method is not nurturing. So you don't get like good vibes. Like you don't feel like you want to maintain a relationship with her. Yeah.
She's just doing her job.
Yeah, she's just doing her job. Yeah. And I did my shake hand. Okay, that's it. Then we went on separate ways.
Different styles. Different
Yeah.
Like your
styles.
colleagues, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Different styles.
Yeah. But yeah, memorable teachers actually. The
Well,
ones
it
that
sounds
have,
like Cheryl is a memorable teacher. Your Cai Lao Shi still remember her from your
Yeah.
relief teaching days.
I wonder how the kids that I taught for
Would
relief
I
teaching,
remember
what
you?
happened to them? I remember they gave me comments like, Cher, your eyes don't open so big, I'm very scared. Say when you're angry, your eye open very big. I was like, oh really? That's I remember.
Your eyes very big.
Like, I scold them all, then I was like, y'all better do it properly, huh? Yeah.
Oh my god, it's quite scary. I don't do it.
Y'all always doing this.
Almost looks deranged.
That's
Oh my god, that's quite scary.
so you
Quite
don't
scary.
understand.
I don't
really.
do it. Don't do it.
Don't make me angry, I tell you. Even, why you always do this? That's all I remember.
Oh
A
my
teacher
God.
who must be forgiven. Fall under that category.
It's me, yeah. Okay, we can move on to like others. But okay, so
Sure.
maybe one thing that I also was interested to know is that based on your experience from how we grew up in terms of learning and all, and what teachers need to do versus now, because now you have things like social media, you have the internet, you say mobile phones is quite a common thing with kids right now. Like, how do you think things has changed, and like what are the challenges or like the benefits or whatever from all these things?
Wow, that's quite a broad one. Are
Yeah.
you?
Because so I can also think from my perspective, like with mobile phones and all distractions. Yeah, I don't know about attention span as well, because
I'm also wondering related to mobile phones, because I think on TikTok there's this Malaysian teacher that I've been seeing.
I know this lady.
I know
right?
who she is as
She'll
well.
use like
quite pretty.
memes. Yeah, she's quite pretty. She use memes to engage
Yes.
her students. Is that something that teachers also need to do nowadays?
So actually, I
Skibidi
did
toilet
that
and all that
when I was
shit.
teaching as well. Yeah, so like I would like to teach them like descriptive writing prompts. So I would put in like memes, gifs, and then get them to describe the gifs. Yeah, so I guess I wouldn't say challenge, but I think it's a complexity law. Like, I mean, in the past, it's also difficult, right? If you only have a chalkboard and chalk to teach, like, can you imagine writing and drawing all the diagrams and all? So it's just
Yeah.
a different aspect of it that will still be difficult. But
They use OHP.
Oh yeah.
Oh yes. But still
Yeah,
hand-drawn,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Can you imagine?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
sometimes I'm like, wow, how did they used to teach in the past? Where they hand draw all the science things, and all like
Yeah.
it's also amazing, right? And today, I would say that definitely the students, I think you really need to engage them. And that's where the complexity is. Because they are so exposed, right, to social media
Yeah.
and all of that in so many different forms. They have so many things, it's so many, like they get info so quickly and so easily. So then the question is, how do we make learning actually meaningful for them? I think when we were kids, a lot of the times we get our knowledge directly from our teachers,
Yeah.
from our textbooks,
Yeah.
library, Max, right? I don't think.
Encyclopedia.
Yeah,
I
when
had
we were
an encyclopedia at home. Last time it's like, cannot Google, you go encyclopedia. I literally like, this topic I don't know. I go to encyclopedia and flip.
Yeah, so it's very like they impart knowledge to us, right? And that was also because we only had limited sources.
Yeah.
But today, many of the things are Googleable, right? And if we were to just see ourselves as imparting knowledge, honestly, we are not really doing the kids a service. Like, it's doing them disservice, right? Where, I mean, then they don't have to come to school already, right? So it's really like dissecting it, right? Trying to make it relevant, trying to make it engaging, pushing them a little bit more. Like, so you have this knowledge, how are you going to apply it? And I think the application part is really the hard part, right? Especially when we learn all these fundamentals, like algebra and things. Like, how do you tell them, this is how you can relate it to your everyday life. This is how you can apply it. So I think it's really a challenge, but I mean, I enjoy myself.
Yeah, I was just like thinking when you say all this, it also means that, do you think that it is harder to be a teacher these days?
I think it is harder if you have a fixed mindset, right, of what teaching should look like. Because if you, especially say younger teachers today, they probably also grew up with a lot of these tech things,
Yeah.
right? So going to a classroom, if you think that your job as a teacher is to teach the way your parents learned, then of course it's going to be way super challenging. But if you also do what you do in your daily life, like how I thought about using the GIFs and the memes to teach my kids, right? It's because I'm also amused by them, right? And I see my kids being amused by them. And then, like, of course, then use
You
it.
can bring it.
Right, bring it in. So then it's not really challenging. In fact, it was easier for me to look for resources because these are things that I'm
Yeah.
actually, like, curious to, like, look at,
Yeah.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it is challenging. But, so then for experienced teachers, then that's where the challenge is. If they've been teaching 10, 20
Yeah,
years with
yeah.
winning formulas,
Yeah.
and suddenly they have to make that switch, actually, it's really not easy, no.
Correct.
Yeah,
I
you
can,
have so much
because
to
even
lose.
for me, now that you say it that way, I think I have a preconception of how teaching should be based on how I grew up and how I learned. Yeah. And now that you say it's like, yeah, it's completely different in terms of how people learn these days. Yeah. And I guess kids are also being bombarded with so much things
Yeah.
and in content and info out there that, yeah, about engaging them and so on.
I guess teaching them to apply in terms of like skills makes a lot more sense.
And it's also to, I guess, give the environment for them to think, or at least challenge them to think a little more critically, right? Rather than just have...
Especially like online, there's a lot of harmful information, disinformation, misinformation.
Yeah.
The kids need to be taught how to think
Filter.
critically and filter.
Yes, yes.
So even though they have access to knowledge, but knowing how to filter the knowledge is a different thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, for us, it's also our own trial and error, right? Nobody taught us, because I guess our generation is the generation where suddenly, things like Zoom, like I see my dad's pager,
Yeah.
and then suddenly,
Yeah.
iPhones and all that, right? It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's really through our own also trial and error, which is why I think it's a bit challenging when teachers have to switch if they're from a different era, and that's where, but I also do see many experienced teachers, right? It's so amazing how they are so like gung-ho. They're like, okay, yes, I know I'm slow, some of them laugh and say, oh, I'm old, so blah, blah, blah. And yet they are so willing to learn because they want to keep up.
Yeah. They're
with-
like
with the
adaptable.
stu- yeah, and then when you can match both your winning formulas
Yeah.
together with ways of engaging the kids, right? It's like doubly like amazing. But of course, not everyone's like that lah. Some people really take a longer time, and some people
Yeah.
might not be able to accept that things have really changed lor.
Especially during COVID, right? I imagine the older teachers might struggle more.
I wouldn't just say older. I think because then I was in HQ, I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if this is me, right? Even like someone who uses tech, I mean, sometimes, somewhat, right? I think I would have really, really struggled. Yeah, because I mean, this is not something we do all the time, right?
Yeah.
Like using tech, using an online platform. I was really like, I was just like, wow, hats off to the teachers. I cannot in my life imagine how I
Teaching.
had to do that. And like with no one to guide you, right? Everyone's just stuck at home. You're just like figuring it out all like on your own. Sure, I
Yeah.
mean teachers can come together and all, but essentially just like in a classroom or you're really on your own.
On your own.
On your own. I don't know how they did that, but it was amazing lah. Yeah.
Do you think that there's still a very big focus on grades these days? I think in our era that is like the thing, right? Do really well, get good grades, get to good school. And I think, I mean, based on the results of this, feels like that's like the only path. I know now it's a bit different. But like, for example, when you talk about like, oh, your end goal is not so much, like back then I would say it's simpler because the teacher's end goal is to help the student get good grades. It's not about critical thinking. I don't think they think too. I don't feel like the teachers engage us just for the sake of engaging us to be critical thinkers. But I think in JC there is that component as part of the curriculum, which is GP lah. You have to be critical. You always like, you don't fully agree. You always have to agree and disagree. You have to always look at things from both sides. And that's where I guess like that's how I built my critical thinking lah. But like growing up, I don't think that's part of it. So it's like how do teachers then prioritize what to
drive the students
so,
towards?
okay, so example, my own experience when I teach the normal tech kids, right? I soon realized that it is less important to cover syllabus with them, because I feel like I was initially when I go to them, I was like, I am being tasked to cover this syllabus for these 5 months. So I have a schedule to follow. I need to clear this by then, clear this. And I was like, focus. This is my mission. I need to do it. And then the kids, they're not keeping up. It's their fault. I need to whip them. Then my responsibility is to whip them into shape to get them to follow. And I have to keep going. I cannot. Yeah. But after a while, I realized like, it's... You have to engage the kids first before you can fulfill that mission. Yeah, and I think I didn't have the patience or skill sets to do it lah. Yeah, and I really tried like all methods. Like there's some points that I gave up. Just like they keep all over the place. Then I just like, okay, I'm just gonna teach. And then y'all don't hear. It's your problem. I reached a point where I was like so desperate. I didn't know what to do. I just like, okay, I just go through, scold them 45 minutes, teach them 15 minutes.
Oh no.
Yeah. And then reach a point, I just like, I'm so tired of scolding them. I'm just going to teach. Y'all want to listen, don't listen. Then one part I just teach. But then I feel bad because after that, a few kids who really wants to learn, they're like, I cannot hear you.
Oh no.
Then I just like, that's where I stop. It's like, oh, I cannot do this. Like, yeah, I cannot make all the kids that wants to learn suffer. Then I have to try something different. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the truth lah is, right, at the end of the day, it's really a whole societal systemic thing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, for me to say, oh, grades are not important, I think that's really downright lying to any kid. And kids should not be told that like grades are not important at all.
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. They are definitely important to a certain extent. I mean, that's how the system is. You still need to pass your exams.
Like,
you need to...
Like, it's still kind of results driven to us.
Yeah, as
to
in,
a large
it's still a
extent.
process, right? You have to... It's like playing a game, right? You need to hit this level to get to the next level. And that's just why. So it's definitely important. I mean, I guess the difference here is that your results don't define you. And I think that's what I hope students will know. But I wouldn't say that your results or your grades are not important. That's really not right lah. But in terms of prioritizing, I guess every teacher has their own style. Yeah, like what to prioritize, what to do. So for me, at least just based on trial and error, right? Like after a while, and I guess it's what I believe in is that I need to build that connection with them first.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen, like, you know, when people at least like their teachers, or they believe in what their teachers are doing, or at least they believe that the teacher's trying to help them, then they are more willing to move. I mean, honestly, we've all been students.
Yeah.
There are some subjects I really, really hate. And if not for certain teachers, I don't think I will even want to touch my homework. Right?
Yeah.
And that's just a thing. Yeah. So in terms of prioritization, without that motivation, or like sparking that student's motivation, it's really very hard to move them if it's something they don't like. So at least that's important for me. Yeah, they don't have to love me, but they need to know why they're doing this, or why I'm making them do something that makes them miserable, you know, and all of that. Yeah, and sometimes for children it's a bit hard. They might not have that maturity to understand. I will never stop trying lah. That's just me. Yeah.
I mean, that's why you are a teacher lah. Because I feel like the fact that you are able to see from that perspective makes sense that you are a teacher. Yeah.
I was thinking that like grades matter depending also on what you're preparing them for, right? Like, I don't know, I think outside of Singapore, like in countries that's so much bigger, where there's so many other opportunities where you don't necessarily need grades to do that job or that profession. Like, I don't know, plumber in Australia, that's the classic example that people always use, right?
Yeah.
Or carpentry, building houses, artists, dancer, singer. Like outside of Singapore, where there's so many opportunities where grades don't necessarily matter, then I can see why, you know, people would say grades don't matter.
Yeah.
But I guess in Singapore, where if grades is still the main way to open opportunities up for the children,
Yeah. No,
then
I
it's
think
also hard to...
it also goes back to, I think, what Cheryl said about the society expectations. I think in terms of how we define success in life, like, it's about, you know, bringing in good money. Certain jobs are
You need
probably
grades,
more respectable compared to the others. And I think that as long as that is still in place for the society, like for example, when we talk about, like you say, plumber, those are like technical skills, right? And I do feel like currently in our system, it's that you go to that when your result sucks. So that is already in a way a perception thing. Like you go to this because you're not good enough for that, and that already in some ways kind of like put you in a lower class compared to someone who do well in science and math. You know,
I guess maybe it's thinking in terms of like how Singapore prioritize lah. Because we're so small, right?
Economically speaking.
Yeah, economically speaking.
I can understand why Singapore is adopting this system.
I was just seeing on TikTok, there's this Singaporean who actually made it to like London West End. So, you know, she's like singing in Miss Saigon, that kind of thing. Like, how many Singaporeans can really be at that level compared to countries that have so much bigger populations and bigger market and bigger stages and opportunities, right?
Or even have the resources. I mean, to be very honest, like practicalities of life is also something that is important, right? Like if today I'm struggling, you know, and I want to contribute to my family's household, even as like a teenager, right? I have so many siblings to take care of, so on and so forth. Sure, I can do part-time jobs. And if I try to work harder at school too, then that will maybe pay for my next like step, right? It can help me pay for further studies, so on and so forth. Like, sure, I don't have to just study, but it would help me lah in some way.
Yeah.
And yeah, lor, that's also something. It's the society is made of people, ma, and so it's a never ending. I give you an example. I once had this conversation with a friend, right? And he was telling me like, yeah, you know, I don't know why like grades are still so important. What day and age is this? You know, why are we still so focused on grades? Blah blah blah. You know, I think that we should just like, I mean, anything is possible. And I say yes. Okay, so we had this long conversation. Number of years later, he had his own kid. And then at the age of 2, the kid started going for classes. Right? And then I was like, hey, I thought you said, I mean, because we are close enough, lah, right? We can have that conversation. I said, I thought you say, you know, like, why is your kid going for language class? Don't know what, some kind of math, calculation, don't know. Like, only like 2+, right? Why is your kid going for? I thought you said grades not so important. I say, I can't help it lah. Peer pressure, this, that. I'm afraid my kid might lose out.
Yeah.
Right? And
yeah.
so you see, even if he has his own set of beliefs, and
Yeah.
yet when there's this larger system, right? If it's very hard, and I can totally understand that challenge.
Yeah, I can understand.
You can
too.
choose to want to break out of it and be different. Or you just want to pick a safe side and make sure like, okay, if I can give my kid all these resources, let me just, pump
Yeah.
it in and all. And yeah, it's a struggle, I guess. But the truth is, if nobody tries to be different, right, then we might just be in this circle for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
You won't have Olympians.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I can see where that friend is coming from, the peer pressure thing. Like
I also can
you
understand.
look at everybody is doing it. Then if your kids is not doing it, then you would think that he or she may
Lose out.
fall off when competing with all these kids.
And
who
he might
already
blame
have the-
himself, or he and his wife
Yeah.
might blame themselves.
Never
Like,
give the kid the
actually,
opportunity.
we can, right? But why did we choose not to?
Yeah.
And then so it's very hard, and I can understand that. But it's not helping, right? This importance on grades.
Yeah.
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 Okay, I got another thing also wanted to. I think we still have. We're actually. We talked quite long already, by the way. I think got like 1 hour 20 minutes.
Oh, I
Oh,
can
wow.
edit until you cry.
That's
Yeah.
1.5 hours almost.
It's okay. I there's one thing I wanted to talk more about, which is parents. I think we covered a bit just now. So, what difference do you see between engaging parents today and back then, maybe when we were growing up? Do you think there's fundamentally? I mean, my assumption is there's fundamentally a big change. I think just now we also covered briefly about how, that we feel like parents weren't on our side, but these days it feels like even kids will use their parents against the teachers to a certain extent. Wait till my father hear of this. That's the Draco Malfoy.
My father will hear of this.
Hear of this.
Watch too much movie, Shayla.
Yeah. So I do get that vibe, and like there's always this. I don't know. Sometimes I feel very I pity the teachers who sometimes maybe need to be on the edge a bit, because you don't know what kind of accusations may occur. But to be fair, I don't think that our system back then when we were growing up, the system is better. It's just different. In fact, the system back then, it does opens up to a lot more abuse by teacher who are abusing their students. Like physically, I mean, my ear has been pulled. I've never been slapped, but I've been like hand or ruler, don't know, those knuckle, don't know, whatever rubbish. Yeah. So all these like mini spankings have happened, been what they call it, conducted by the teachers. These days, I'm sure these are all physical violence. Not violence. What's that better word? Physical punishments are not allowed anymore. Are there still canings? Are they still allowed?
Last I know, there are, but only for like major, very, very major offences of a certain kind. Yeah, and I think you need the parents' approval, you need them to come down, need to sign, and things like that. So there's some kind of process and paperwork. It's not just like, I decided to cane you and then I just go,
Wow.
no.
Last time they used to have public canings.
In school,
I remember.
What
hall.
do you remember? What are the offences? I feel
I
like
don't know.
stealing.
Theft. There was a major theft. I remember
is
a
it?
major theft, and then like major theft case, and then there was public caning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's usually boys from what I remember.
Girls, you don't get
Yeah,
caned.
I
Only
don't think
guys,
girls.
only boys.
Then what happened to the girls who steal?
Wow, good question.
They don't. They get.
They don't get caught.
They get what do you call it? The one that you cannot go
Suspended.
to school. Suspended.
Suspension,
I mean, you
Every
look at
context
Singapore.
is different.
Yeah.
You look at
Every
Singapore
context,
law.
They don't
in
cane
prison,
women,
You
right?
don't cane women,
Yeah.
right? It's only men who get caned, right?
That's true. That's
So
true.
I think
It
it's
should
like
take after that
reflective.
lah.
Yeah. But yeah, going back to
Parents.
yeah.
I mean, at least from my memory, and I don't know if your experiences were the same.
Yeah.
When we were students, right? The only time my parents see my teacher
The-
or even interacts with my teacher is like this parent-teacher meeting, right?
meeting,
Like
yeah.
maybe once or twice a year at max.
Probably twice, I think, like every half year or something. Maybe.
And I was quite a good kid, so I never had any calls.
Oh,
Don't know about the both of you. I'm sure
Actually,
it's okay.
I think mine
Yeah.
generally quite okay also.
yeah, okay,
Yeah, because I do generally quite well
Yeah.
in school.
fair.
Okay lah, I'm not the in secondary school. I wouldn't say I'm a top student, but I was doing okay.
Managing well.
But
Yeah,
it's just
so,
like talking lah, same thing lah. Yeah,
yeah, so you don't really, right? I don't think your parents see the teachers fair often.
yeah,
I think today, I don't know if you would call this an expectation, but it does seem that there is a higher tendency for like more interaction and communication
Yeah.
with parents. And
Yeah.
I think that's encouraged.
Yeah.
Really because rather than see the parents as like somebody who's very withdrawn or like they have no idea what their kid is doing, right? I mean, in the past, a lot of our parents were more busy working, so maybe they might not
Yeah.
be very involved, right? Or rather than see them as like, oh, this person is always pressurizing me, we want to try to see them as partners, lah. Yeah, right. And so
Makes sense, yeah.
this like this intention of wanting to build that trust, I think is what's being encouraged. And therefore, and with phones, right, and all of that. I mean, I
Yeah.
know of a lot of teachers who have class apps.
Oh,
I was just about to ask, isn't there like an official MOE app or something that teachers and parents can communicate on?
Oh, so that's Parents Gateway. So that's for like forms where they can just like give their consent. You know, like the
Consent
past we have to
forms,
do,
yeah.
like
Consent
hard
form.
copy
That's shit,
and
never
all
tell
that,
my-
right?
You forged before consent form?
no.
No.
I might have forged once or twice. That, oh shit, never give my mother. Then today need to hand in.
Actually, maybe.
Nobody cares.
You know,
What?
last time you had to get your parents to sign next to the grades
Yes,
one.
yes,
So you
yes.
make sure that they see, your grades.
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually
Yeah.
generally I quite quiet lah. Then I will get a
except for
beating.
that few
I'll get a
times lah.
beating and then and then I will submit. But sorry. So those app is largely for forms these days.
Okay, so I didn't get to use it before.
Haven't implemented
Yeah,
yet.
haven't implemented fully yet.
Okay.
Yeah, so at that time when I started using it, it was for forms.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure today how it has evolved.
Yeah.
But back then, so apart from this Parents Gateway at that time was mainly on forms. Some colleagues I know or other teachers I know, they also have apps. That where they add the parents in all in a class, and then they can put like announcements.
Oh.
Or like if they want to directly contact the parent, let's say, I mean, something happened at school, like the kid fell, some emergency, they can also directly contact them. Yeah, so I mean, as with all platforms lah, right, when we use, I mean, even for us, let's say we use WhatsApp or Telegram for work, right, unfortunately the boundaries are always very unclear. There are no standard guidelines, right? And because a lot of these are also quite new to the parents. I mean, I don't think that when they were students, their parents had this kind of communication platforms with the teachers. So sometimes when the boundaries are so unclear, then like what are considered like official hours, that you have to reply them and update them, and what's acceptable and what's not. So I think it's really a lot of teething, and sometimes it's being taken advantage of lah, which I feel is quite painful for teachers.
Is there official guidance now, like from ministry?
Yeah, I was just about to. I don't know whether I somehow have this impression that recently they announced how teachers are no longer required to give their phone numbers to parents or something like that.
In fact, I never knew that we were required to give.
Or people will ask for it. Is it?
Oh, okay. I mean, there was never, at least when I was teaching, there was never a guideline to say, oh, you must give. In fact,
Yeah.
I've never given unless I willingly gave. So maybe like certain students, like say someone who's injured and then like the arm is in a sling for quite a while, then I'm also concerned, right? And the parents might be concerned. So I willingly gave my number, right? Or some kids who have some difficulties at home. But I've never been asked to give. So I'm surprised, to see that. Yeah, unfortunately, I really don't know what the official stand is.
Yeah, I'm trying to read an
today.
article.
Yeah.
So CNA has some, but when I click on this article, they say respect teachers' time. MOE releases guidelines for school-home partnership.
Okay.
I click on it, the article is gone. So I don't know what happened to that.
Yeah. I guess like with guidelines, right, it's also another thing lah. You have guidelines, it protects a certain group of staff, right? but then it also takes away the creativity you can put into it. So I give you an example. So a lot of my colleagues then, they had this app, right? But then my belief was, maybe let's see how long I can go without using an app, without giving my handphone number. Can I still build that parent-teacher kind of partnership, right? So I mean, it was just me being new and also using my newbie shield lah, to see like, oh, let's just, right? So I didn't offer my number and I didn't have an app. So a couple of parents asked, like during the first meeting, like, oh, do you have an app that you're going to add us in? Because, last year this teacher added in the year before. Then I said, actually I will be finding other ways to communicate. So fortunately for me, they decided like, okay, let's just give this a go. What I did was I wrote letters to these parents every term.
Every term is 1 quarter.
Yeah, every 3 months. I would write a short note that the kids will bring back and then have to sign. The parents will sign to acknowledge, just to share a little bit about each kid, like some things that they've improved there, some things I spot that they were doing right that I thought was great. Some things maybe they can pay a bit more attention to or speak to the kid about. And for the entire year, I didn't get that request to add to an app or like to.
So that one is more like under the teacher's
Discretion,
is it?
Yeah.
So not like the school. Does the school kind of like set some guidelines like, maybe you should do this? No. So there's no. Okay.
Yeah, at least during my time there isn't. So
Okay.
today, that's why I say, when there are clear guidelines, unfortunately, then there are a lot of things that have to be aligned.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure whether each school would then make some alignment, so that the parents won't be comparing, which also puts a lot of pressure on the teachers lah.
Yeah. Sounds tough, to be a teacher. It's like, yeah, you have to manage so many stakeholders. Yeah.
Yes. But I guess sometimes you just need that one good thing to happen, right? And then it will make you feel like, it's worth it lah.
But then you also can have that one bad thing that happened, and then you'll be like, oh no, why am I doing this? Question everything.
It's
Worth it.
It's true.
I mean,
It's
it
true.
can happen both ways, right?
Yeah.
This
it's
relates
true.
to a question I have.
Yes.
Because it sounds like you really love teaching and you put a lot of yourself into it. So I'm wondering, why are you now an ex-educator?
That's a good question. Wow.
How to be politically correct.
Yeah, in my head, right?
But to be fair, I feel
too
like
comfortable, so better turn my
maybe
filter on.
maybe you should look at it from. I feel like whatever
No
you
lah.
experience is still
Yeah,
valid.
yeah. No.
Yeah.
I want to be as honest as I can.
Yeah.
So I was teaching for 5 years, and then I went to the ministry headquarters for 2 years, where I did work a lot on like education policy, did some pilot projects. So I really got to see like this whole view of the system. And when you are in one school, right, it's like you just have that little world, and all you see are your students, their parents, your colleagues, right? And you're like, oh yeah, right? It's so great. Like, sure, let's work this out, because it's easy, ma. I mean, there's not so much red tape, not so many levels. Whatever ideas you think of, you can implement very quickly, and you see the direct impact of it.
Yeah.
When you go to the headquarters where it's so huge, and then you realize, oh my gosh, there are 33,000 teachers, and like it's just one big system, and any change you make affects so many other parts. And then it was COVID. COVID broke out, and I mean, we were already struggling, I guess, as individuals, right? And to suddenly go from being just an educator to like someone who's involved in policy implementation, I think it really shocked me. And I think when you see the weight of your work, it also scared me, because I'm someone, I guess, who sometimes struggle with that attachment to work, right? And like, because I really want to do it well, I'm like, oh my gosh, in the past I affect 40 students, today I affect like 200 over 300 over schools, with what I communicate to them, even that simple email with so many instructions on COVID, blah blah blah. It really took a toll lah. And that's when I also saw the importance of an organization, and I guess a lot of like change management, a lot of like support in terms of also the development of like your leaders, and everyone else like us. And so I took a short break to do my master's. And after that, I decided that, if I keep thinking that, this is a system that I hope can be better, right? Then I want to try something different. Yeah, so I left the service officially, and then went to an education institution to do like organizational development work.
So that's more of development work for
The staff.
the staff.
Yes. So the corporate side of it, the staff, because I mean we put so much into our into our work. I mean for our students, right? But who's gonna put like effort to take care of the staff to really like help, make things better in an organization? And I don't want to just keep like complaining or feel like it's too big, this system, blah 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 blah. Like every system is big lah. So then let's just start somewhere. But I still always have that special place in my heart for teaching.
Do you think you'll go back one day?
Maybe. I mean, I wouldn't close doors to that, but I'm also seeing how my experience as a teacher and like formally, in like HQ and all, have been so helpful in helping me understand some of these issues, right? And I really hope that I can continue to do a bit more of like the organizational development work. Because there are so many great teachers, and like I just have faith they will continue. So like let me be like the one behind the scenes to hopefully do something for them.
Guess I have one more last question.
Yes, is it going to be very difficult to answer?
No. I think we talk about a lot of teachers who are like passionate and so on. What happens to teachers who are not doing well? Meaning, I don't know about like how like
question.
because I mean we I would love to think that most teachers are passionate and truly care about the work, but I would think that some of them wander into teaching thinking that maybe this is for them, and then they struggle to keep up with the whatever is required of them. And I don't know how it works, but like I guess if your performance is poor, like how do we decide whether a teacher's performance is poor? Is it pure? Is it from the grades of the students? Is it complaints from the teachers? Is it How do we go about doing that?
So at least for me, then I really have no idea how the performance management has changed today. But then, right, at least for me, I never felt that my students' grades would determine my performance. Because it's a very like, I mean, I'm sure you would know with public service, right? It's like this super clear like performance thing, like, oh, if you are this grade, these are all the things you need to do. Right? And for teachers, we have this additional component, which is a classroom observation.
Oh,
I remember.
Senior teachers will go in and...
So usually that would be like a senior teacher, lead teacher, or maybe your HOD. And then sometimes also with your school leader, so like your principal or vice principal, they would sit in and then they would observe your class like for an hour or so with like lesson plans. Yeah, so that would be
Sounds
one.
familiar. I remember certain other teachers sitting in. But then I feel like sometimes also a bit skewed one, eh? Because it's like the teacher will tell you in advance, so this is happening, whatever. Then I think depending on whether you like the teacher, sometimes you try to be
cooperate,
yeah,
right?
try to cooperate.
I mean, I was always cooperative when I
Yeah.
was like, okay, today my teacher's having a test.
Yeah,
Let me
then
help,
everybody will be very quiet one.
Yeah.
Like if you like the teacher, you try to be
Yeah, so apart from this, right, although I do think that there are also things that you can observe, right? Because as you, let's say, sure, the kids are cooperative, but as you walk around the classroom as they're doing the work, if they look like they understand, but the work that they're doing obviously shows they didn't understand, that also tells you something, right? And it's also triangulated. So at least for us, we had file checks and book checks. So what happens is that the teacher would give, okay, so it really depends on schools. Some schools, they will ask the teacher to pick like 5 random, or like you put your entire stack of 40 like workbooks or worksheets, and then the entire 40 stack of files, right? And the maybe head of department or maybe the senior teachers again, they would pick like maybe 5 random ones, and they would actually go through it
see what kind of feedback you give the students.
How you mark?
How you mark.
Are you like just like everything also mark correct? You know, like
Yeah.
did you then remind them of certain like things and so it's also triangulated with that. Which I feel is also quite a good. I mean, honestly, it's very stressful lah when you give the files, right? Because we are not perfect. We are not like perfect robots that can
Yeah.
give perfect things. But actually, the feedback that I receive sometimes from the person who checks my files, right, also tells me like, this is something that I've overlooked. But that also goes into, your, I would say your performance lah, but it helps you to also see whether this teacher is, trying their best lah to not do the kids a disservice lah. And then everything else is all like your standard public service things lah, working with stakeholders lah, competencies. So and so
But actually,
forth,
like my time in government, I always thought actually when you get promoted, it just depends on time. You
Not
stay
really
long
lah.
enough, you get promoted.
Not
No,
really.
time.
I think there are two kinds. There's one is you become a cockroach, and then you will. But then that kind of promotion, there's a ceiling one.
threshold also.
Yeah, and then those usually promote slower. Yeah, but I think you generally, if you do well if your work is being recognized, you tend to move a bit faster. You
Actually,
might
how
get a
does
bit
the
more opportunities.
school system work? Like our principals, I always, when I was a kid, right, I always get this impression that like, if you're a principal, you were a teacher who got promoted.
You are the best teacher.
Exactly. But is that actually
The
true?
hierarchy of teachers.
Yeah, are there principals who have never been teachers but are principals?
No.
Also, most of them would have been a
They
teacher.
would have to be in education.
Yeah. I would think
Yes,
likely is a
yes.
bit like it's like in a engineering firm, you're engineers, and then you become managers, lor.
Although our vice principals, because today some schools have like multiple vice principals. So there's a VP like admin.
Oh.
So this vice principal does mostly like, I mean, apart from the administrative, also like the safety, a lot of the operation side and all that. And so some of them might not be former educators because their work
So their
Focus
ops.
is more on
it's more on ops
probably
and all of that.
SAF.
Like they say
Operation
OM,
managers,
a lot of OMs were former SAF also.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
a lot
makes
of
sense
our
lah.
OMs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and you also need someone who's have a bit more expertise in those areas, right? So our VP admins, so they might not all be educators. But from what I know, I would think most of our school leaders are still really former
Used to be
educators. They
teachers,
would have definitely have some years of teaching.
I feel like you need lah. You'll be very disconnected from the ground. So you don't know what your teachers are going through, what students need, and so on. Yeah, I can't see like you bring someone from
Parachute
corporate
someone in,
to come in to be a vice principal of a school. I don't think.
And some of our VPs who do like the academic side, right? They also help even with the vetting of exam papers. So if you've never been a teacher, I would think that would be extremely difficult.
I think so too.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay. I think we have talked quite a lot.
Yes.
I think this has been a very interesting discussion. Yeah. I think being teachers is hard. Do you have any advice?
Wow, what a great
Do you have any
TLDR.
advice or
it's
words of
just hard.
encouragement?
After 1.5 hours of talking,
Yeah.
there's your
Summary.
conclusion.
My conclusion
hard
is
lah.
I still agree that I cannot be a teacher. I think I don't mind being a mentor, but not a teacher. Meaning someone who is like I have someone that I can reason with. I feel like yes, okay lah. To be fair, I don't think it's fair to say that people who are younger they cannot reason or what. Yeah, but I guess it's like the kind of life advice that or like.
I
kind
only
of
realized
coaching.
there's difference between coaching and mentoring. Yeah. Like in my company, like there's a difference. Like
Yeah.
mentoring is like someone who is in the same field. So you can impart more like I guess technical kind of knowledge and guiding them. Then coaching is like
More
can
like
be anyone.
life, can
It's-
be life lah.
It's
Yeah.
like it's kind of like pseudo therapy in some ways. Like you ask them questions
Yeah.
so that they
Like maybe they're very lost in whatever they want to do. How do you
get them to lead, like to find out themselves? Basically.
And then you throw in the element of sponsoring. Like having someone as a sponsor,
Yeah.
you know, which means like they will help you maybe fight for some opportunities,
yeah.
you know, that's more tangible. I mean, there are just so many.
I'm searching for
aspects.
sponsors right now.
Yours is the money kind,
Both,
right?
both.
Just the money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so many
Yeah.
things.
But I now that we are also a bit, I almost say advanced in age. Not so much advanced in age, but like the fact that we have been in our careers for like, 10 years and so on. I feel like with new people coming in with less experience, you also start realizing, how much we have moved on and grown. Yeah, versus someone who just started their career. You're like, actually, I do have things to share and to help people learn faster. And like, I'm happy to be in a position where I can provide this kind of advice to people. Yeah. So, yeah, I guess I don't mind being a teacher, but it depends on the form it is in lah. In my work area where I can help to guide people a bit more and give some of my experiences to provide some of my experiences to people. I think that's something that I enjoy doing as well. Yeah. But you asked me to manage a bunch of 13-year-olds again. I think cannot lah. Yeah, I think cannot.
Even after this long conversation,
I think
would you give it a go?
no. I feel like it's I feel like you need the patience and the passion for it. Yeah, and I feel like I don't have that, and that makes me. It won't make me a good teacher because I know I won't be patient. I won't be putting my 110% to help these kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like they don't deserve a teacher like me. Yeah.
Self-awareness is always the first step to becoming better.
Yeah. Let them maybe grow up for another 10 years lah. Then when they enter the workforce, then maybe let's start talking again. But yeah, thanks for sharing many things.
Yes. I have one last thing to say though.
Yes.
I do think that there's a difference between a teacher and an educator. Yeah. And so like, I mean, today I know we mostly use the terms quite interchangeably.
Yeah.
But I guess because just now you asked whether I had any words of advice or encouragement, right?
yeah.
And I think I would like to think of teachers as educators. And the reason why I say that, and I hope that teachers also think of themselves not just as teachers but educators. Because I guess the word teach is very like, let me impart something to you. Knowledge,
One way.
skills.
One way lah.
But education is so much more than that, and not just academics, right? But like so much more. And like what you said, if some teachers hope that they can also impart some life skills, some advice, they can be a bit of a coach, a bit of a mentor, anything at all. Like why not? Why can't you do a bit of all of that while also being a teacher? And so I really hope at the very least people start seeing that that teachers are really just educators or who want the best for their kids.
Okay, that's a
Good
good
note
one.
to end on.
Yeah, it's a positive one rather compared to mine. Like, I don't want to teach again.
Traumatized.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoy listening to this. Do you have any socials you want to shout out? Not really. You want to stay hidden?
Yeah.
You can let me know again.
Okay,
Yeah. So hope to see you guys in the next episode. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.